Welcome to Controversy with FP Wellman. I've been looking forward to this show for weeks. I've been a fan of our guest for years. Can't believe he actually took time to hang out with me while he's on tour and everything else. Going to be a lot of fun, but we have to start off with the comedy that is the House GOP. And I don't know if you heard about their Keystone cops looking for informants and the real whistleblower on the Biden crime family, but after 2 weeks of breathless anticipation and teasing they have a real live whistleblower, a credible witness that Vice President Biden himself was involved in crimes, they had to announce this week that he's missing. That they somehow lost their informant, or like 9 of them, and you can't. And it's so bad. Literally, you'll see Congressman Jared Moskowitz actually posted this helpful wanted poster for Chairman Comey. You can see on your screen, that this is very helpful because the missing person is missing. I did a bit about it this week. I mean, the whole thing is a complete joke. These guys have no idea what they're doing. We're definitely going to talk about the Keystone cops here with our guest. So let's just get on with the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am your host, Fred Wellman. As I mentioned, this is On Democracy with FP Wellman. You're in the right place here on the MeidasTouch network and everywhere. It's hard to keep up with all the silliness that is the United States in 2023. I find myself watching the news less, to be honest with you. I kind of watch clips, and I watch comedy more. You know how the joke is always like your Instagram feed, the search bar in your Instagram kind of gives you away, if there's like girls in bikinis. Mine is literally all comedians, Star Wars, and for some reason, bird pictures. I don't know why, but nonetheless. So that's where I go. And so I'm really excited about it. One of the ones I turn to the most often, of course, is Christopher Titus. He's incredible. He's foolishly decided to join our show. Chris is a comedian, podcaster, actor. He was an overnight success at the ripe age of 36 when he started his own TV show, aptly titled Titus. Your branding's very much always the same, my brother, which of course he was a star, executive producer, co-creator, stand-up comedian, longtime host of his own podcast, aptly titled The Titus Podcast, right? And he's currently on tour, and I'm sure we'll hear about where that's at. Brother, man, thanks for joining the show. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, we call it the Armageddon Update. I wrote it as a joke. The podcast started as the Armageddon Update because everybody's going after Obama, and Obama had kind of turned the country around. Like he had the worst financial crisis in 100 years, and so I ironically named it the Armageddon Update. And since then, it's actually just an apt title with the way the world's going. So
it never ends.
Where we're at now.
It's a rolling Armageddon that never, it's just a new version.
It's a slow-moving Armageddon. That's what we're living in right now.
That's what we're living in, right? That is it. Of course, I mentioned at the top, about the, it must be hard to stay like topical right now because shit changes so fast, right? Like I've had, you can't put a show in the can for a week because it's already out of date, right? I mean, do you ever?
It's like Armageddon updates where I was like on it, like that morning. I turned the news on. I wrote 400 words, funny. Then I give it to my producer, and we actually do all the stuff. And 2 days later, we look like we were sleeping.
Yeah, you missed all these stories.
The new movie Jaws is out. That's kind of how it came across. And so we try really hard, man. This new one I kind of went after everybody. But the Armageddon Update, Christopher Titus podcast is on my YouTube channel, Christopher Titus TV, and all those places where you can get it. So thanks for letting me whore my product right up front.
This is what we do. This is what we're here for, brother. It's no point. I'm proud to help where I can. The first time I saw you was Student Veterans of America's National Conference in 2017. I think it was in Orlando, and I saw you live there, and obviously you killed it. But what drags you into a veterans conference? I mean, do you remember that? I mean, it's been a while.
I have family all the way back to before they were Navy SEALs, UDT. My dad was in the National Guard. He fought in the Watts riots. That's the best I can give you on my dad. But my uncle Dennis, and then my cousin Scotty, he was in Kenton Stacy. If you know Kenton Stacy was, he got blown up in Raqqa. Yeah. He fought. He was the EOD, explosive ordnance disposal. That's what he does.
I love
it. So I have family that's legit military, like literally hardcore, embedded with Navy SEAL, best of the best. So when in the military asked for anything, I've gone to Iraq twice for the military, and we did shows. I even got Everlast to go. The one thing, and we treat them, it's so funny how we treat the military so bad through history. Like there's still guys from the Civil War that can't get wounds looked at. That's how we've been working. So,
brother,
anytime the military needs me for something, I usually do it.
I was driving here, and my girlfriend's like, "Have you got your damn disability updated yet, or what?" I'm like, "Oh shit." So yeah, topical. I mean,
because you were in. I mean, is it getting better? My father-in-law says it's gotten a little bit better. Obama, and it's so funny because when Trump was taking credit for it, I had to literally go, no, that was Pat. What are you doing? It's amazing to me the cognitive dissonance we live in, and I say this on my podcast. I don't blame the con men. The con men will always be con men. I blame the voters. You got to start paying attention.
Yep. I think you nailed it right there. And you're right. It was Obama. I actually got involved. I was still a Republican when he came in. He broke me, man. I joke a lot that Michelle Obama's muscular arms broke me, because they dove the fuck in and they made a difference, and he hired Bob McDonald, who was a West Point grad. He was at Procter & Gamble CEO, and they put him in there as VA secretary. Everybody thought it was crazy, but he just really kicked him some ass. VA got a lot better over those 2.5 years. And it's funny to see, Trump tries to take credit for when he got rid of half the programs. But no, it's gotten better. I've got a kid who's a National Guardsman. I got another kid who's a veteran himself, the 82nd Airborne, which is fine, I guess. Well, it's a bit of a running joke. I was a 101st guy, and he went to 82nd to mock me, I think. But
Randy Williams, my father-in-law by marriage on mom's side was by my wife's mother's side. He was Ranger, and he was actually running intelligence in the Middle East. He was the advisor to the Kuwaiti ambassador for a couple of years. He was pretty hardcore. He got me when I was in Iraq. When I was in Kuwait. Yeah. You can't leave the base when you're on tour, and one phone call. He was a colonel, and he got me off the base like that. It was interesting to watch how the power structure works.
It is interesting. I was over there in '99 and with the Joint Task Force there at Kuwait, and one of my I got into this Army school, and one of our classes had been a Kuwaiti Army officer, right? And he was really excited that I was in country, and I called him. I said, "Hey, I'm in Kuwait." He's like, "Yeah, I couldn't leave." Same thing. He could leave the base for missions because Fred, I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to take you on the town to show you. I'm like, "Oh, this is great," I'm like, "All right." So he picks me up in his car. He's got his robes on. We drive into town, and he takes me to McDonald's. There's a McDonald's. I'm like, sweet. So anyway, Kuwait. When we were stationed there back before there was a war, well, between wars, I guess technically, it's the world's boringest country, right? There's just not a lot to do.
Did you have the McShawarma nuggets? Because those are awesome, I hear, in Kuwait.
I never forget that. Oh, this is great. They're still the phone box, old school. Anyway, these are the things you run into. This is so good, McDonald's. Anyway, I got rid of that local flavor that I was looking for. Luckily, I had to get it in Iraq. I went to 3 tours in Iraq, and I used to joke that people say, "Why'd you keep going back?" I said, "Well, I just love the food, man. I mean, the kebabs. It's the best damn kebab." No, dude.
I have to say, Iraq was interesting. I learned a lot about the troops. We were in Fallujah. Yeah. We were in Fallujah when I was performing in Fallujah, and I'm on stage. I'm in the middle of my show. All of a sudden, we hear, boom, and the whole building shakes, and nobody moves. The guys are just like... And then, so I think, well, no one's freaking out. So I continue, and then boom, and the whole building shakes. And I was on stage with and I put my hand on, I'm like, guys, did anyone else hear that? And when the guy goes, this soldier goes, "Hey man, that's outgoing. Don't worry about it. That's outgoing." And then the guy goes, "And by the way, if it's incoming, you'll just see us running. Follow us."
Just follow the crowd.
Okay, let's continue the show.
It's not like a bear. It's not like a bear. You gotta just be faster than everybody else. Really, everybody wants to go. Well, when I was stationed in the Green Zone for 2 tours, and I actually lived right next to the river there. And that was when all things were crazy in Sadr City. So they'd shoot them over from Sadr City, right? And you got really good at okay, you hear the launch, whoosh, you're like, okay, that's a rocket. And you're you're laying in bed, do I run to the bunker? I'm kind of comfortable. And you're like, I went long, fuck it. You're like, I'm in my underwear. I'm just not feeling it,
Well, it got me to change my mind about stuff. We were walking around, me and Everlast, the second time I took Everlast and he did music for him, and we were walking around Mosul.
Yeah.
And we just said, let's get out and walk around. We go walk around, and these soldiers come and go, what are you guys doing? And I go, we're just walking around. And go, no. Shh, don't walk around. What are you doing? Right. That's a bad idea. So
people see you.
My little safe LA life got kind of upended. But the guys were great. We We had a great time over there. We got to re-induct a guy. Like they duct taped him to a tank, and they were like, Titus, go say something. So I got to mock. I got to roast a guy while he was roasting duct tape to a tank.
And be funny. No pressure.
Yeah, be funny. Yeah.
Well, I tell a story of Moles. So I was in Moles my first tour. I came back my second tour, and I was working with this guy named Petraeus, who people have heard of, and we were training the Iraqi security forces. So one day we fly up to Moles, and this is the heat of things in 2005 when they just had the big uprising in Mosul. Things are still pretty tense. And we go to visit this local police station. And Petraeus is Petraeus. If you ever hear stories about him, he's just as crazy as you think he is. And so we're sitting there, and and I'm just the public affairs. I'm the PR guy. You hung out with him on the tour, right? We're the schmucks, or like, I had been a combat aviator. Petraeus made me a PAO. So anyway, so I'm hanging out with them, just minding my own business. And the Iraqi police chief of Mosul is like, "It's very safe, General. You can walk. You can walk the streets. Everything is safe." He's like, "Oh, okay, cool, all right." And Petraeus goes, "Well, you know what? If it's so safe, let's get some tea." And he jumps up and starts walking out, right? And everybody's scrambling. I'm throwing my shit. Luckily, I never took my shit off because I learned. I knew. So I'm behind him, and there's this big towering Fulberg colonel. I was a little lieutenant colonel, this giant guy, and I'm also a squatty body. So, and I walk, and we're running, and you should see people. He's just walking, no helmet, nothing. He's walking to the gate to go get a cup of tea at his favorite tea shop, and he gets about 3/4 of the way when the police chief grabs, goes, "Major General, please, Lieutenant General, please do not go out." He goes, "Why?" He goes, "It's not safe." And Petraeus goes, "Aha! You said it was."
There you go. The same thing we flew out to it was a fob way out. I didn't know Forward Operating Base. I'm like, you get Titus. They actually wanted to add it to her. Do you want to go to Forward Operating Base? And I'm like, hell yeah. Then I find out on the way what a Forward Operating Base is. It's actually in front of the front lines. Yeah. So we go to this little town and we're walking around, and there's this. I do a bit about this. I did a bit about one of my specials. The guy comes out. I don't know what unit he was in. He didn't have a name, but the patch on his thing was a bear raping an eagle. That's it. Whatever unit that is. I don't want to deal with those guys.
Guard.
So they take it to the second floor. We're in this compound, and then there's a town like maybe 400 yards away. And me and Everlast go on the balcony, and we're looking at the town like this. And all of a sudden, this other dude comes running up the stairs, and he goes, "Guys, can you come back here? Come back here, please." Yeah. And we go behind this wall, and he grabs the little lieutenant that had taken us up there, slams him against the wall, and he goes, "You do know there's snipers right there, right?" And Everlast goes, "Hey, can I beat his ass?"
Exactly.
So, it was interesting how everyone was nice to you on the bases, and then there was just moments of like, guys, we could all die any second here. So that you guys, and thanks for your service, man. And like my cousin, like he told me the story about when Kent and Stacy got blown up, and it's just. It was some guys they were training. They were training guys in Syria.
Yep.
And the one thing he told me was they were clearing a hospital. ISIS had just destroyed this hospital. And there was one gurney on the third floor that had some very neatly stacked blanket. Everything else was destroyed.
Yeah.
So one of the Syrian guys they were training went over and looked at it, which you don't Scotty's EOD. You don't, if anything's different, don't touch it. And when he did it, a piece went by Scotty, and Kenton Stacy went through his throat. And Kenton, by the way, if it went this far over, it severed part of his spinal cord, his vocal cords, this much over, and he would have just got hurt, he got a scratch. Yep. So it's just, to everybody in the military, all you guys who've busted your ass and continue to do it. For the shitty pay, my niece is a Marine right now. She's in a skiff in San Diego. Thank you. And it's not bullshit. I don't have a ribbon on the back of my car. If you guys need me to come perform, I gotcha. I'll do whatever you need me to do.
And that's
Please protect me, though. Don't let me die.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's a nice touch. The funny punchline of that whole story too with Petraeus was the colonel looks down at me because I'm tiny. And he says, "Hey, so you do this often?" I said, "Yeah, all the time." He goes, "Good luck surviving." Good luck surviving your tour. I'm like, "Thanks." I did, but yeah, it's a weird life. You kind of get used to it. You get sort of blasé about it. You're like, all right, well, I almost got blown up there, and, and then you get the weird wound. Like my big wound of war is I blew out my foot, like running to hide in a hole. I was like, I stepped in a hole. It's like, wow, my big injury is I really just blew my foot out stepping in a hole. It's nothing manly at all. But that's
no, it still counts. You were trying to avoid death.
I was trying to avoid dying. Yeah, I guess that counts. Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take what I can. On more topical nature, and it kind of actually it's not that topical. I tell stories a lot. If people watch the show, I talk a lot about my Iraq experience, and I did civil affairs, I did public affairs. I mentioned I spent a lot of time with the Iraqis, and it was really interesting talking to them about what life was like under a dictator for 30 years, right? Yeah. And one of my most telling, and it'll lead us to what we were talking about in the pre-show, is one of my most interesting ones was we were starting to get the bombs in Mosul. I was outside of Mosul on my first tour, the 101st Airborne, and I ran sort of a sector of what's called Q West, which is an air base down there. Anyway,
Q West, we did Q West.
Yeah, great. Oh my God, I wish I'd been there. So I was there. I'm the founding father of Q West. I was one of the first guys. I set up probably where you did your stage. When I got there, it was all bombed out and no windows, and I was the 101st during the air day. So we took over Q West, and just seriously, we had a local show up at our gate, which was literally a pilot with a pistol, and he's like, "Hey, I need water." So we ended up doing civil affairs. But I was seeing this guy, Dr. Muhammad. He's in a book someday, hopefully if it ever gets sold. But and we started to get bombs, right? They were starting to go off, IEDs on the side of the road. This is early days. And I said to Dr. Muhammad, I said, and it's such a telling thing about life under authoritarianism. And I said, I don't get it, Muhammad. I don't get it. People are seeing them put the bombs in. People are seeing the guys doing this. They know who's doing it. There's no question. He said, yes. He says, Major Woman, let me explain something to you. When you live under a dictator for 35 years, like Saddam, when you see, when you see your neighbors, the car comes at night and the neighbors disappear and they're not there in the morning. What you learn to do is not see things. Wow. Right? He says you learn to not see things. So yes, people are driving by, but I assure you they are not seeing things. And I thought, wow. And the point I make is, I thought to myself, fuck, thank God I live in America. Yeah. And anyways, Ron DeSantis. So
down the road. Let's talk
segue. Right?
Wow.
Segue, Ron DeSantis. And he had a bad night last night. He endorsed Kelly Craft, who was running for Kentucky governor. She got a whopping, I think, 17%. So, and then he lost Duval. He lost Jacksonville, the largest Republican-controlled city. There's only been one Democrat in like 30 years. Donna Deegan won last night. I mean, handily won. She was outspent 4-1. And DeSantis' candidate lost. And it reminds me, I was thinking overnight as we were getting ready to talk, my friend Rachel Vindman, who's a previous guest on the show, has been an old friend of mine for years now. Rachel tweeted last night that she lives in Florida now, which is, God bless her. And one of her friends took the history test, and the history test called slavery forced servants and called the Japanese internment program, World War II, a relocation program, And so, I mean,
and Hitler was a go-getter. That's what they called Hitler. We've lost our mind. DeSantis. The thing that bothers me the most about DeSantis, and the funny, he keeps building it. This thing where now. Yeah. That gay people, if the doctor has a religious thing about gay people, he doesn't have, if someone comes into a trauma center and they need life-saving surgery and the doctor goes, well, he's gay, I don't want to work on him. If people understood that that's literally Nazi Germany shit. That's literally exactly like, and you can't to lose the humanity of it. And I think the reason what's happening now is, say what you will. Yeah. Republicans got sucked in, and I was Republican for many years. Republicans got sucked into this thing where they were like, okay, I'm a Republican, America, America, America. Well, a lot of those people really believe that, and they really believe in the Constitution. Yeah. And what's happened is the people like DeSantis, Trump, there's a whole group of people now that keep saying it, but even conservatives are like, you're not living it. And DeSantis is such a raging example of how bad it can get. And I have some conservatives in my family that I'm very close to and I love them dearly. We argue or we just don't talk about politics. And even they're turning now. They're like, I would rather have a Democrat that actually just does what he's supposed to do than these psychos that are taking rights away from people. I'm not saying it's everybody, but there is a group of maybe if they're right-leaning centrists that are trying to turn you. I mean, like there's guys there's a lot more people like you than I think.
I'm a raging liberal now.
DeSantis is out of excuse my language, out of his fucking mind. Like, what is going on?
Right. Right. And there's no guide to it. And I call those people, we call those people on the show normies. Those are the normie Republicans. And a lot of them, like I have family members in their 80s who've been Republicans their whole lives. And even they're like, hold on now, 34 felony charges, or hold on now. I mean, he just got found liable for sexual abuse. A jury of 9 people unanimously, one guy was, didn't one guy say he was just a avidly watcher of like the Tim Pool podcast? I mean, come on. A Tim Pool.
He owned a MAGA hat.
Come on.
And I still think he raped her. Come on.
Exactly.
They didn't say rape, though. You're right. They couldn't do it.
They couldn't do the rape.
Whatever it was.
But sexual abuse. At what point we have,
there's a shift happening where I think even because we've never lived under a dictatorship,
right,
it's starting to happen and people are noticing it.
Right.
And you got to remember, every one of these men who vote all the time on the Republican side has a wife and her rights just got taken away.
Yeah.
And trust me, there's some conversations happening in the bedroom that the guy's like, yeah, happy wife, happy life. So DeSantis, I don't think it's, I'm praying to God. Well, it's turning because they're trying to kill the voting. They're killing voting rights for young people. They're killing voting rights for making it harder to vote for minorities. Anybody who's going to vote Democrat, they're trying to hurt their vote. What they don't realize is they're also hurting some of the elderly people, making it harder for them to vote. So they're not going to.
Their own base.
The good news is this. And again, we had my podcast for 12 years. I've been trying to study for 12 years. You've been in it longer. I will say this. There's a point coming where everyone's starting to understand what's happening. And the good news is, because of who they elect and what they do, and they don't have a policy, that the Republicans are effing themselves on a daily basis. The policies, the lack of policies, when all they have is gay people, trans people, deep state, fake news.
Own the libs.
And then, by the way, and crime. We had crime.
Oh,
really, yeah. Kevin McCarthy? You have one of the top 10 crime states in the country. Bakersfield, cities. Bakersfield is in the top 10 crimes. How good are you? And so, as long as we keep beating against it, I think eventually it'll soak in. And I wish people would, I'll say one more thing and I'll move on.
No.
I wish people would understand, the one thing that divided this country was everybody wants to be right. Everybody thinks their opinion's important. What I think. Well, if you want to be right, just look at the facts. We have enough facts. Yeah. Well, yeah, those are facts. Whose facts do you have? Well, there's a professional skateboarder that has a blog in Portland, and he said, okay, that's not a fact, bro. So you people that continue to fight people who have facts, let's even say left. All you have to do is look at the facts, and then guess what? You get to be right. Yeah. You get to be right. Just change your mind. Look at what people always say, you're a Democrat, lefty, libtard. I'm an actualist. Give me the actual what's happening.
Right.
I've made more money my entire life. I've been doing comedy since 18. I make more money under Democrats. I went back to my taxes. I've made more money every year time we've had a Democratic president. So I'm making a practical decision. I'm not a bleeding heart. I live on a golf course, for God's sakes. I'm just doing the right thing for my country and my family.
Right.
And I'm not. And if JFK Jr. does come back, he ain't gonna be running on a Republican ticket.
No, that's the thing. It's like it's those what you just described used to be when you and I were kids, because we're about the same age. I think you're a couple years older than I am. Those were conservative values. Don't you remember, man? We remember the family and sacrifice for your neighbors and your country and all. Those used to be the conservative values, and now those aren't. Don't even get me started on fucking fiscal conservatism, because none of this is. Did you hear? I think Ron DeSantis. They said this week DeSantis. I think the lawsuits alone against all of his shit policies are like $16 million so far. $16 million in taxpayer money to defend shipping migrants from Texas to, Massachusetts. All the thing, $16 million in legal fees because he wants to, basically that's an in-kind donation to his presidential campaign. Where is that fiscally effing conservative anymore? And that's why I get crazy. And I'm a bleeding heart liberal now. I don't even complain. I'm not a Republican. I gave that shit up, for Lent 6 years ago.
Right.
And my girlfriend laughs because she's much more conservative than I am. And she's like, God, you're a freaking liberal. Like, I know. What's up with that? But it's just
I'm fine with that. It means I care about other people. The Martha Vineyard thing.
I care about other people.
The one just because these migrant workers didn't have to work in Texas. Right. They were like, hey, we live in Martha's Vineyard. We get to work in nicer places. This is awesome. The weather's great.
They have support programs here.
Cold. They have to burn.
Yeah, they don't treat us like shit here. This is great.
Again, every one of the GOP's policies, everything they try to do a gotcha seems to screw them every time.
Well, that's it. You know, and segueing back to something we were talking about earlier, you talk about these young people, right? So I'm advisor to the voters of tomorrow. I've had the head. I had a couple of folks. I was on Victor Shee's podcast the other day. You know, this new generation is doing stuff like, and I was laughing because I caught, maybe it was a couple of months ago. You did a bit. It's on your website, I think. You know, when you open your website up about Gen Z, and I was laughing because, you know, I'm old enough to I have two kids that are millennials technically, and I have two kids that are Gen Zers, which is because of the cat, right? And I love how people like boomers and other Gen Xers like, I guess you're actually a boomer now, aren't you? But they call me.
No, I know because it's a 2 months. I
know. I'm there too. I'm like a senior Gen Xer.
A gray area. Damn it. Call me a boomer again. We're going to have trouble.
It's a good thing you're so far away. Having said that, I laugh because so many people are our generation. See, I see how I did that. Our generation, they call them the trophy participation trophy generation. But I always say, you know, it wasn't my freaking 7-year-old that bought the fucking trophy, y'all. Yep. That was us. That was us. You know, my 7-year-old wasn't going to Trophies or us. Hey, can we get trophies? No, that was you idiot parents buying the participation trophy generation is us, not them. You know, it's like I just like you talk about it a lot. How just the shit show they've seen for the last 20 years. You know, it's like we had to stop that.
It goes back further than that. It goes back to 96, man. If you see the bit, by the way, if you want to see we people paid for the thing for a year. We filmed it a year ago. Yeah. Zero Side Effects is on my YouTube channel, Christopher Tice TV. It's a full hour and 20-minute special. Yep. But the millennial bit came about because I was driving. I have two kids. I have a 20-year-old, I have a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old.
There you go. Yep.
And I started to kind of think about, because I made fun of them for 3 specials. And then I was like, wait, they
that must be nice.
School. We didn't have school shootings.
Thanks, Dad.
And they're just used to it. I remember the Sandy Hook, I was driving them to school while we were listening to the news. And I remember I was in the car crying, and my daughter was like, why? She was little. Why are you crying? I'm like, you guys, you don't even know the world you guys live in. And then I started thinking about 9/11, and then I started thinking about anthrax and in the 24-hour news cycle. These kids, it's amazing all of them don't have PTSD on some weird no wonder they're, and then we put them on medication on top of that because we were a little annoyed. I need my time. Can you guys go take yourself off? And so when I got that, I was like, oh, I have to apologize to these kids. So all you millennials out there, there's an apology to millennials and Gen Z.
Yeah.
And again, I was wrong. Moving on. Enjoy your participation trophies.
Yeah, enjoy those trophies. Them. Yeah, because you know I know my daughter, that my kids give me so much crap. I was like, you know, thanks, Dad, for all the shitty world we live in. Like, hey, I tried. You know, it's not my fault.
Exactly. Well, you make a good point. My daughter, quick story about my daughter she was on a soccer team, and they were horrible. They sucked so bad. They won 2 games because the other team didn't have enough players. That's why they were forfeits. So at the end of the season, we go to the trophy ceremony, and I'm like, she goes, we have to go to the trophy ceremony. I go, trophy ceremony? Oh, they're gonna make you watch other kids get trophies so you feel bad about yourself, so you try harder. Yes, that's the kind of values I want. She goes, no, they're giving us trophies. And I said, for what? And she said, because this was early on, she's a little, because we participated. And so we had a talk. So we were driving home in the car, and she's got this little trophy, and she goes, why did we get this, Dad? I go, I don't know. Why do you think? She goes, well, we didn't win. And I go, exactly. She goes, so it doesn't mean anything. And I said, exactly. So I guess I raised her right. And then 2 years later, she came with a team that made it to the final tournament and came in second.
Wow.
And they gave her a medal. It was nice. A medal. And on the way home, she remembered that, and she said, we earned this one. And so I think what's happening is these kids, you're right, it's the parents' fault. Helicopter parenting created a generation of kids, and they're waking up now. David Hogg, there's all these kids that are like, if I was the GOP, and they're scared, that's why they're changing the voting laws. They're scared to death because these kids, they're young enough to not give a shit. You and I got stuff. We got stuff to protect. You and I got stuff to protect. But these kids, they don't care anymore, which is great.
That's it. And I love the energy. I love hanging out with them. I'm on the senior advisor to Santiago Mayer was on the show, and this kid's still in college. He finally graduated last week. And I'm like, Bro, I'm like fucking 57 and I can barely hold together a podcast and a couple consulting gigs, and you're going to college full time and running a super PAC basically, you know. I'm like, the hell, you know, he's building chapters around the country. Like, these kids, they're freaking amazing, right? You know, Victor Shee's out here running, I think he's got 5 different shows he's on. I mean, these kids are amazing. And you know what? They're pissed. They're pissed. And they're watching, and they know. And I talk about a lot, and probably regular viewers of the show hear this a lot, but I talk about a lot, and you'll appreciate this too, because your kid's about the same age. My youngest is 25, and I realized this generation was different. And if people heard the story before, I don't care. It was different because my son's a little on the spectrum, right? So he was kind of shy, you know, introvert kind of kid, you know. And so when he was like 8 or 10, we got an Xbox, and that's when they had Xbox Live first, right? I'm sure you went through that with your kids. And one day, a kid who doesn't emote to any great extent I hear him screaming, yelling, and laughing his ass off in his room. And I pound the door open and go, what the hell is going on in here? What shenanigans? And I got to act old, right? And he's on the Xbox Live, standing up, jumping up and down, playing a game. You know, dude. You know how they get, right? And they get excited.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, who are you talking to? He goes, oh, my friend in Germany. I'm like, your friend in Germany? And I look up, you know, I'm freaking out like, oh, sure, some perv. No, it's literally like some 12-year-old dude who lives in Germany, and they're playing video games together. And it was like, I was like slapped across the forehead. Oh, shit. You know, these kids have a larger community than you and I did, Chris. You know, you and I grew up, you grew up in California. I grew up here in Missouri. My neighborhood, my community was on my bike, how far my 10-speed would go, right? That was my neighborhood. These kids are really interconnected, right? And they feel it. They see it. They see, a friend of mine, John Della Volpe, was on the show. One of these books is his, Fight, the one on in the end here called Fight. John Della Volpe, he does all the polling for the Institute of Politics at Harvard. And every year he's done this, he started with millennials, he's still going. And one of the most interesting things in his previous episode, he talked about how when they surveyed them, they asked this generation, what are you thinking about when you go in the voting booth? And they literally said, I'm thinking about my friend's aunt who couldn't get an abortion, or my grandma. Yeah, it's really it's just dramatically different than how you and I are in our generation. These kids see, so all these things. So when you see the Tennessee 3 getting booted out in Tennessee, guys like you and I are like, that's Tennessee. Not Gen Z, man. You know, they're like, that's the fucking GOP, and they just fuck somebody. You know what I'm saying? It's really interesting.
Do you find yourself? I find myself re-inspired. Part of it was, we started our podcast with the Jared Loughner shooting, and to watch David Hogg and some of those kids, I think I became a little more. A lot of comics don't have the balls to just go full out. They don't want to make anybody mad. My entire life is based on the First Amendment. Every dime I've made is based on the First Amendment, and without it, and without this country, my people came here in 1638. I'm directly right to Robert Titus in the first settlement in Massachusetts.
Wow.
And we didn't do shit, by the way. There's no Titus Bank or anything. We obviously just drank with the locals.
Same. Dude, my guy came 2 years behind you. 1640.
So when people say you're un-American, I go, no, I track back to, and you do service. And so to use that against somebody, but these kids inspired me to be more a little like, let's dig into it. Let's get to the facts. And they're going to need us because we're going to have the money to help them get through it. But I'm really, 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 again, inaction by our government will create activists. And I think that's what's happening now.
I think so too. That's a great place to pause for our sponsors. We'll give them a second to talk about our sponsors. We have incredible sponsors this week. I'm thrilled to talk about them. Cold turkey may be great on sandwiches, but there's a better way to break your bad habits. And I'm not talking about some weird mind voodoo or a wacky message board. No, we're talking about our sponsor, Fume, and they look at the problem in a different way. Now, not everything in a bad habit is bad. So instead of a drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Fume is an innovative, award-nominated device that does just that. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. And instead of chemicals, Fume uses all natural, delicious flavors. You get it. Instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habit easy. Your Fume comes in an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing anxiety while breaking your bad habit. The first time I used Fume, I was shocked at how flavorful and fresh it tasted. It's easy to hold and perfectly balanced, and quite honestly, extremely fun to fidget with. The real wood material and sleek design definitely classes it up, and I feel pretty darn cool holding it. Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and honestly, even fun. Fume has served over 100,000 customers and has thousands of success stories. There's no reason that can't be you. So join Fume, accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Now, head to tryfume.com and use code FRED to save 10% when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com and use code FRED to save an additional 10% off your order today. As you know, I have a big family, and that means there's usually a lot of garbage left over by the end of the week. And frankly, I used to feel really guilty about it, but then I got a Lomi. Now that I have a Lomi, it's changed the way I think about my food waste. Lomi transforms my garbage into gold at the push of a button. Lomi is a countertop electronic composter that turns food scraps into dirt in under 4 hours. Now I love composting. Plus, it's made cooking at home even more fun. There's no food rotting in my garbage, smelling up the kitchen. Thanks to Lomi, I only have to take out the trash like once a week, and it's hassle-free, mess-free, no more leaking bags. So here's something cool too. I turn my waste into nutrient-rich dirt that I can feed to my plants, my lawn, and my big garden in my backyard. That means it's not going to landfills and producing methane gas. I get to help the environment, and that makes my life easier. All my food scraps, plant clippings, and even those leftovers I forgot in the back of the fridge go back into my garden. Help me grow more nutritious food right in my backyard. I learned recently that food waste makes up a huge portion of our personal carbon footprint. So by reducing the amount of food I send to the landfill, I'm helping to do my part for the planet while also feeding my garden. So whether you want to start making a positive environmental impact or just grow a beautiful garden like mine, Lomi is perfect for you. So head to lomi.com/Fred and use the promo code FRED to get $50 off your Lomi. That's $50 off when you head to lomi.com/Fred and use promo code FRED at checkout. Thank you, Lomi, for sponsoring this episode of the show. And we're back. Yeah, I tell you, that's exactly it, right? I think they're much more active. They're much more plugged in, and they ain't playing. And it's funny because you see people discriminate against, say, oh, well, they always start off that way. My favorite one is when people tell, well, you know, everybody starts off a liberal, but they grow to be a conservative when they buy a house. Like, yeah, good luck with that. You know, I mean,
I actually went the other way.
Yeah, same with me.
We got a composter. Yeah, no, I went way the other way.
Yeah, I love my compost. That's one of our sponsors. I goddamn love my Lomi. You know,
dude, my wife won't turn it off.
I'm telling you, like, I've got a giant
running all the time. She's got plants growing. That Lomi thing, by the way, they're one of our advertisers too. So Lomi,
two thumbs up. There you go. Well, you know, so I'm not gonna let you get away. And I think I informed you in the pre-show that Lauren Boebert's getting a divorce, and. Yeah, I mean, she gave a speech, 6 months ago saying about how preserve a marriage through Christianity. And when you chase Jesus, your husband will chase you chasing Jesus, which is a really weird connection, but we'll go with it. But it's very Lauren Boebert GED style. And this is after Marjorie Taylor Greene. You know, I was working on Marjorie Taylor Greene's opponent campaign when she went through her divorce with her husband, very sneaky and dating Brian Glenn from Right Side Broadcast. And it's like, it's really interesting to see these hardcore Christian, you know, people, and the truth's never what it seems, right? It's like, so she's a hardcore, you know, marriage is everything, but yet another divorce. And they're just like us. But I mean,
I don't know how much of a hardcore
right?
Christian you are for Boebert to have a closed down OnlyFans account. It's really, she's really not. If you track Boebert's history. Oh, yeah. We just did a podcast about hypocrisy. The hypocrisy of the GOP, it's not just an accident, it's policy. Right. Whether it's where you know, crime is bad, yet they have the worst, the crime cities, some of the hardest core Republicans, worst crime city. You know, guns, it's mental health problem, but gun laws, the least gun laws have the most gun death in all red states. And no money for mental health. That Abbott cut mental health training. And then they cut mental health. Exactly. I'll vote against it. It is so, the hypocrisy is insane. Christian values. Trump's our guy. Really? The guy who just got a civil case settled for rape and was screwing a porn star where his wife was raising a newborn. Right. That's your guy. And so here's what I don't get. Maybe you can help me. You've probably spent more time thinking about this. I keep trying to figure out why. The con men are the con men. Why is it? Because Reagan killed our education system in '84, so people are just dumb and have no critical thinking? Why do these people continue in the face of proven hypocrisy? Right. In the face of why do they continue to vote for these people?
I like their policies, is what I hear a lot, right? Even because they exactly. And I always ask them, well, what policy? Oh, the policy. Like, okay, there's a mental gymnastics I see folks do all the time, right? It's like, well, it's not that he's a good Christian, but he's doing the things that we want. Like, again, obviously Trump's not a good Christian, but he did get all those judges that got rid of Roe v. Wade, right? So it's a useful idiot for them to propel themselves, right? I don't think Darth Putin likes Trump at all. I think he thinks he's an idiot, but he's a useful fool for his goals.
Idiot, yeah.
And then the other thing I think too is I think they've all surgically had their shame gene removed, right? And when we find out how that works, right? I mean, I'm always laughing because you see liberals on like social media go, oh, they should be ashamed. Like, really? I mean, really? I mean, do you think that works with them? Like the shame? I mean, you actually did a bit about Al Franken, right? I mean, Al Franken does a comedy bit on a USO tour doing this, posing for the camera. He's out because we shamed him out of the Senate. And yet, I mean, it's just the insanity of it. So I think they've all had their shame genes surgically removed, or that portion there, the little scar. Look for the scar on their head where you hide shame.
There's a chemical in the mega head.
Okay,
it soaks into your skin and burns the shame gene out. Right. The funny thing of the Franken thing, and I brought this up, I was like, you do understand that somebody had to take that picture. Like, it was obviously
a sneaky thing.
There was people there.
She was wearing an armored vest. She was wearing a vest.
He wasn't feeling up. Like, what do you guys? And this is the problem with Democrats, and this bothers me a lot. I'm a pretty, I don't want to say tough guy. I'm intense, and I call it like it is.
Yes.
The Democrats have this thing. And OAC, and there's some, we need to be, look, the GOP will get into lockstep. Here's what we're going to say. You go woke, you go broke. Right. Okay. And we're all going to say that. And they all do it. Yep. The Democrats go, well, my idea is not that. I have a 10% different opinion. And what ends up happening is it looks like herding cats. It just looks like a bunch of, we need to actually, and as long as the message is positive, and by the way, go woke, go broke. Apple is the biggest company on the planet. It's got $3 trillion in cash, and it's run by a gay guy. Yeah. So the phrase doesn't even make sense. Yeah. Sorry.
But Bud Light. Which I think will survive. You're
I think they're going to make it. I think they'll pull through.
They've lost a little bit of money, but I think they'll figure it out. But no, you're absolutely right. It is this. We do this in the left. Now, this is where I get weird, and I actually compliment them too. Is I think the House Dems have done a great job, to be honest, because I was worried that we would have. But I talked about Jared Moskowitz at the top of the hour. I talked about that, his little bit about they're doing I gotta give Hakeem Jeffries. I've met Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah, he's really great. I think he's great. I'm glad we have a new generation too. I mean, and please, Dianne Feinstein, look, you've done a great job for the country. You've been here a long time. But guess what, babe? It's don't you have grandkids? What are you doing? Sorry. I'm just saying we have to be aware enough to call that, because why the right won't do that. We do call each other on it, and I agree with you. I think we're fighting a weird, impossible battle with a side that just makes shit up. They make it up, then everybody starts saying it. And I have relatives that will spew it. My uncle, we take a family vacation with my conservative uncle and aunt, and they're awesome. But they started talking about all this crazy stuff. Well, I have as you do the research. Yeah. So I just started texting them both, article after article after article, till 3 days later, my uncle comes in and he goes, "Hey, stop it." He just didn't want to hear it anymore. So, but you're right. Yeah, I mean, the great thing about the Democrats is when they do get loud, it's for something real, it's for something real that needs to happen. And DeSantis, man, like, this guy scares me way more than Trump. Yeah. And I don't know how he's getting what he's getting done. I don't, you gotta, for DeSantis to pass what he's passing, he's got to have a lot of minions that are willing to do evil. And there it is, right? And there it is. I mean, that's something I talk about a lot is,
none of these authoritarian governments, none of these regimes, Hitler, Mussolini, Saddam, the one I dealt with personally, no, those guys don't do that alone, right? There's complicit and compliant, and then there's the people who are scared. That's why his laws he's passing on, the book banning, for example, are so vague. The goal is to intimidate people into self-policing, right? Well, you know what? I don't know if this book's going to pass or not. Let's just pull it. That's the whole way the authoritarian mindset works. Now, the question is, can he duplicate that at a national level? It's not looking great, but, you know, it is 2023, so who fucking knows, man, right? You know, but you know,
I think Trump did something. And by the way, again, hypocrisy. Right. Yeah, man, freedom of speech. Let's take all those books out of the library. What? You can't
teach that, right? Yeah, we want freedom, but not that kind of freedom.
Exactly.
Well, you know,
we want the freedom that you have to listen to our rules. Yeah, our rules. Listening to your rules. They won't wear masks unless they're at a Nazi protest.
Because I'm free.
Carrying a swastaka.
It was my choice.
Fine, covering their
my body, my choice.
I don't get it.
No, that's exactly it, and it's painful to watch, you know. And I dealt with it. I was at I ran a COVID hospital for a while in New York, and it was crazy. I had people. We had a guy. It's a true story. I don't tell it often. We had a guy actually show up to be a volunteer. I won't say where he's from. He's a veteran, and he literally came to disprove that COVID was a thing. We found out, that was the chief of staff of the hospital. My job was to fire. I literally fired more, you know, staff than we had patients at one point. You know, the head doctor came, she goes, how's it going? I said, well, I got rid of another, that crazy guy that came here to disprove. She goes, how many is that now? I said, I sent 4 guys home. She goes, isn't that more patients than we've sent home? Like, yeah. You know, he literally, he'd gone all the way to New York.
Crazy.
He had gone all the way to New York.
Stacking fake bodies in the refrigerated truck. It's like cordwood. We're just making that up.
He thought it was fake. I'm like, bro, you know, I got into online with some lady saying the whole thing was fake. I'm like, I'm sitting here right now looking down from my conference room at patients being brought in, and they look, you know, we had one guy leave. I'll tell you, this is a happy podcast, but still, we had one of the coolest things that the ladies, there was ladies that organized this whole hospital. It's amazing. Missy Givens and this doctor from the Army, a couple others. Anyway, New York Presbyterian did the thing. Anyway, so one of the smart things they did, it was all special forces veterans, special operations veterans, and then a few nurses and doctors. My dumbass. I'm a Ranger, but I'm not special operations. And the smartest thing.
My father-in-law was a Ranger too.
Yeah, I got it in 93.
I know what you guys went through.
Yeah. So we had, one of the smartest things they did, they brought in a counselor, they brought in a social worker, not just for the staff, not just for the patient, but the staff. But she comes in one day and she's crying. She comes in they would come to my office, the crying room, we called it. And she came in, she's crying. And I said, what's going on? She goes, well, I was just sitting with the patient in the bubble. So this is back in the early days. Remember, we wore the whole bubble suits and stuff, which, you know, I never went in because I was like, look, I got no business. I'm not a tourist. I'm not going to tourist sick people. Okay. So she came out, and this man had gone in there, man, from New York, and he and his wife had both gotten sick. Old man, living in an apartment. You know how New York is, stacked, 20 high. God bless FDNY. They came, picked him up, took him out. While he's in the hospital, his wife died. He was in the hospital for, I want to say at that point, 3 or 4 weeks. He lost like 35, 45 pounds because it was eating you away. We got him well. Our hospital was sort of a step down unit to get people well. And he was afraid to go home because he'd left 6 cats at home when he got evac'd. Right. So he's like, I don't want to go home. You know, my wife's dead. I don't know what I'm going to find in my apartment at this point. She came in, I'm like, and then I got on Twitter, and I got some fucking woman coming at me like, oh, it's all fake. I'm like, I don't know how, and I said some really bad cuss words that were used against me later, you know, but it's just like, yeah, but that's going back to the delusion you and I are talking about, this huge delusion of many people in our country who have just completely given themselves over to the insanity and listening to the insanity and believing it. It's really, it's terrifying, and we could go on for a whole show about that.
It's terrifying, but if you look at history, this has happened throughout history.
It's not unusual.
It happened to the Germans. I mean, if you go,
Italians.
I mean, and people are, I don't understand. The facts are easily accessible. The problem is that we had this guy who basically, Trump came in and did what Goebbels did and said that you keep saying the lie enough, it becomes the truth.
Right.
And the weird part is to watch. I have a relative. I'm married into the family who's, I'm not going to tell you who it is, but he's at the top of one of the big conservative organizations that I mean, and him and I have a problem because he makes money off of this. He makes money off of lying. His entire job is based on going after Democrats. That's his entire, and he gets paid a lot of money for it.
Yeah.
And and he married into a family, and listen, if you're lying to a group of people and you're smart enough to know you're lying, you're part of the problem.
Right.
We have a country right now that there's a lot of dumb people that continue. Look it up. How about this? You ever have someone do this to you? They go, man, yeah, here's this happened in COVID. And I go, well, show me those facts. I always say, link me. Here's my phrase. Fact me or fuck off. That's what I say. So I said, so link me to that.
Yeah.
It's not my job to do your research.
Yeah, not your Google. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. It's not, but you're saying something that sounds insane. Just show me, because I'm this guy. Yep. You show me the proof, I'm on your boat, because now I have new information. Now I'm smarter.
Right.
And I just don't see the end game. I don't see what they're hoping is going to happen. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to put your dumb ass in charge if they take over? That's not going to happen. You're just going to be part of the when these guys take over. And I just wish people understood history. I wish people understood the steps that we're taking to get where. I mean, if we don't stop this, it's going to. DeSantis is literally like a test case. It's like there's a lab in Florida. How far can we push this?
Right.
But to make it so that gay people or trans people can't get life-saving surgery if the doctor has a problem, it's a lot different than I'm not going to bake a cake for a gay couple.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's escalated pretty bad, and I think you nail it. And I mean, I guess I try to end on a hopeful note, right? I still have this weird.
Why'd you have me on?
So anyway, good talking to you, but not this week, y'all. No, I'm gonna try. Look, this is me. I'm a professional, man. Trust me. He got his ass fucking whooped in Jacksonville last night. Right. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. He endorsed a Republican. It's a steady in his own goddamn state that he just won. He lost the biggest Republican controlled city in the state in this country. So I do find some optimism. People are going, hold it, fuck, this is nuts. And the laws are starting to have. The other problem is the great ideas are starting to have impact. Right. Like this, I guess they just tightened up. You have to use E-Verify tighter, some fucking rule in Florida. You know how it is. But it's only a week old and businesses are like freaking out because let's be honest. And a lot of people who look like you and me aren't the ones picking the fruit. The oranges don't get picked by people like you and me, brother. And
we sit in the refrigerated trailer and we go, can you guys do this part of the orchard? That's what the people like us do.
Here's your paper check.
What's happening now is that I think they're screwing businesses. And it's funny because the Republicans are our pro-business, right? But they're just screwing businesses. So here's the good news. I'm going to help you end on a happy note. Okay?
All right. It's a little fucking happy dance, man.
Here's what I'll say is that what's making me happy is we're starting to see, we've let it go down the road, Trump, and people started to wake up to the fact on the left that, oh, these guys aren't kidding. Yeah. This is not an anomaly. Yeah. This is now their platform.
Yep.
And what happened in Tennessee, the Tennessee 3, the response to it was awesome. To have those kids just marching through and not letting it stop. We've got when you see like Florida, Jacksonville gets taken by a Democrat. At one point, you have to have. It's those sparks that give me hope. So keep fighting, and we all have hope. And I'll keep writing jokes that make people want to punch me outside the club after the show's over. But I will continue to do it. In the spirit of Carlin and Robin Williams, I will do my best to rattle the cage.
And we appreciate that more than you can imagine, my friend.
Dude, thanks for having me on. I
loved it, man. What a great time. Thanks for making time. No, you're on to it. So before I let you go, where can we find you? Where's the tour going? How do I buy tickets to see your ass live? Go.
So the new show, just to make you feel better, is called Carrying Monsters. It's basically, these are stories for many years I couldn't tell, and then a bunch of people who the stories are about died, and now they're stories I shouldn't tell, but there's going to be no attorneys involved. So excellent. I'm touring with the show. This one. You're
not trying to extend your 13-year divorce?
And it's all about my family and getting through the worst divorce ever, and it's hopeful. Like you said, I will go into the darkness. But I always leave in the light. Just so you know that. So go to ChristopherTitus.com. If you want to see all our stuff on YouTube, I do the Armageddon update, which is very funny. Have you seen it? Yeah, I like that. And so that's Christopher Titus TV. The new special's up for free on Christopher Titus TV. I put all my specials up during COVID because we were all locked down. So I'm on my 10th one. Carrying Monsters is my 10th. Come see the show. I guarantee you'll have a good time. We got a standing ovation this on a Sunday. The show's that good. It's that good.
I'm not surprised.
Not to brag, but but I've been doing this 40 years. I better not suck at it.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about you being on Columbo. I'm going to let you go. You thought I forgot, you son of a bitch.
That was an extra. And I think I got cut. But it's still on my credit.
It's still on your IMDb.
You have no credits. So I may have just
I left.
watched
It's
Columbo.
21 Jump
I'm not even
Street,
sure anymore.
Columbo, and then your own fucking show. I was like, that is a hell of a leap to go from. And brother, I know I saw you because I watched that show every week with my parents. So God bless you.
Yeah, it was fun. I love doing it. We, I've been really lucky, and that I could get to. That I've done this job since I was 18 years old. That I've been a comedian is just a blessing. And again, because of that, because of this country, there's many countries in the world I could not do this.
Yeah.
Without the First Amendment in the Constitution. So when people say, "Oh man, you're communist, you're socialist," first of all, could we get people just to fucking understand the difference between communism and socialism? So but look, we'll argue after you get a dictionary. God damn. Sorry.
It's all online.
Just clickety
This
clack,
isn't hard.
dude.
It's
Clickety
in your
clack, you can
fucking
figure it
phone. All the world's information. All right, Kirill, I'm gonna let you go, brother. Man, good seeing you. Go do good things, man. Thanks for joining me.
See you, bud.
See ya. Man, that was a blast. I knew it'd be fun. I think I hope I didn't blow your ears out laughing, you guys. I do enjoy this job. I can't believe I get to do this. It's just great. And I really appreciate you all being here and being part of it. We're so thrilled to be on the MeidasTouch Network and all the auto platforms, just everywhere. I tell you a little tip, though. If you could do me a giant favor and you go on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google or Amazon, or especially our friends over at the MeidasTouch, go ahead and share. I'd love to get a review. 5 stars would be wonderful. I love those. Get rid of all the people that hate me. It matters a lot, the algorithm. We've really seen just exponential growth, especially since we joined our friends at the MeidasTouch Network. And it's all because of you guys. But if you can go the extra step and share, subscribe, tell your friends. By the way, leave a comment on YouTube. I actually do read them as much as I can. And you'll see me reply, and I'll try not to cuss. So please do. I'd love your support. And thank you. We just love our community. You're a part of it. You can find our community, of course, at our Substack, fpwellman.substack.com. Really enjoying that community. You can catch the podcast a whole day early if you do it that way. In addition, you can find us, of course, on MeidasTouch, and I hope you watch our other creators on the MeidasTouch Network. It's growing fast. It's one of the fastest growing networks in America, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of it. Thank you again to our sponsors, Fume and Lomi, this week. We're so thrilled to have sponsors on the show now, and they've joined our community as well. And I actually do use the stuff, which is kind of funny. And so I just really appreciate that. Of course, our longtime sponsor since I joined here at the studio, they own Half Coast Studio, which is Vi Media. Vi Media is a digital marketing firm based here in St. Louis. They can be your partner for everything you might need in the digital marketing space. That's VIE.media, Vi Media. They're just a terrific organization. I'm very blessed. As always, find me I'm still on Twitter, y'all. I'm not quitting. I'm not quitting. So I'm at FP Wellman on Twitter. I'm at FP Wellman on Post and Jesus, Spoutable and everywhere else. On Instagram, I'm FP Wellman Official. So you can see all my pictures of me walking and all my funniest stuff there. As always, on Democracy Pod on Twitter as well. We are here every week. I got another great guest next week. I'm pretty excited about who we've got lined up. We're going to nail it down this week, and I think it's going to be a really special show in addition to the special show we had this week. So it just keeps getting better because of you guys and the large audience, the large community. Cool people want to be a part of this, and that's on you. So thank you so much. I can't wait to see you next week. Thanks for joining the show. Remember, just like Chris said at the end there, please keep up the fight. It does matter. We are moving the needle. The results of last night's elections tell us that we're moving the needle, but it's all because of the energy that we all bring together to fight for our country. As always, I'm Fred Wellman. This is On Democracy with FP Wellman. We'll see you next week.